that you hold in your hands. A book is also proof that human beings can work magic. 5 years ago, a group of book lovers got together and started LitAgra, a platform of like-minded people to meet, discuss, learn, analyze, criticize, appreciate, conform, reform, and thoroughly enjoy the books that we read. Alongside reading, we also organize eclectic meets, and today we have gathered to display the artistic genius of the iconic Satyajit Ray. Our members have worked tirelessly to present the various facets of Ray's genius and share his mastery and skill. So I request all of you to please put your mobile phones on silent mode and allow yourselves to immerse into the sheer passionate artistry of Satyajit Ray.
Satyajit Ray for his debut film Bhatia.
Satyajit Ray is awarded an honorary doctorate by the Oxford University in the year 1978 for his contribution to world cinema. Ray becomes only the second film personality to receive this honor after Charlie Chaplin.
The Dada Saheb Phalke Award for the year 1984 goes to none other than the legendary filmmaker Mr. Satyajit Ray.
Year 1987, the French President Mr. Mehrotra flies to Calcutta to honor Satyajit Ray with the highest French civilian award, the Commander of the National Order of the Legion of Honor.
Year 1992, Ray receives the Honorary Academy Award for his extraordinary contribution to world cinema. The Oscar Award was presented to Ray when he was in hospital in Calcutta. Audrey Hepburn appeared on stage to present the award.
This year, the Academy Board of Governors has voted to award an honorary Oscar to the great Indian filmmaker Satyajit Ray. Mr. Ray has been making films for almost 4 decades. The Academy recognizes Mr. Ray's rare mastery in the art of motion pictures and of his profound humanism, which has had an indelible influence on filmmakers and audiences throughout the world. Unfortunately, Mr. Ray is not well and cannot be with us tonight, but he is able to speak with us from his hospital room in Calcutta.
Well, that's an extraordinary experience for me to be here tonight to receive this magnificent award, certainly the best achievement of my movie-making career.
In the same year, 1992, India's highest civilian award, Bharat Ratna, is presented to Satyajit Ray for his incredible contribution to Indian cinema.
An artist par excellence, Satyajit Ray strode through his times like a colossus. He became a cultural icon, created a cultural heritage that belongs not to Bengal alone, not to India alone, but to the entire world.
Satyajit Ray revolutionized the Indian and the world cinema by a new style of filmmaking deeply rooted in realism and humanism. No other Indian in any field of creative endeavor has made the kind of global impact that Satyajit Ray made in the world of cinema. I invite Neha, the youngest member of our book club, to provide us a peek into the rich and varied life of this extraordinary filmmaker. Neha, please.
Lights, camera, action. Let's begin the show. My own film education started in my school days, in the classrooms of public cinemas. It was later augmented by the reading of film books and still later by the actual business of making films. So said Satyajit Ray. So once upon a time in Tollywood, a child, rather a genius, was born on 2nd May 1921 in an affluent and intellectual Bengali Brahmo family of Calcutta. His mother Suprabha was a singer. His father Sukumar Ray was a writer, poet and illustrator. His grandfather Ubedul Kishore Ray was a writer, painter, violin player, music composer and founder of one of the finest press of the country, U. Ray and Sons. Ray's genius clearly lay in his genes. So growing up in an environment steeped in creativity and literature, Ray developed a keen interest in art from an early age. He would doodle the long summer afternoons, hoping that his attempted portraits and cartoons would appear in his family's children's magazine called Sandwich. His first boyhood wonder was his father's printing press. He clearly remembers being lifted up to look at the tall camera. Even the paper cutting machine thrilled him. But when Satyajit was 3 years old, his father Sukumar died, and he and his mother moved to the house of his maternal uncle. Satyajit completed his education in Bachelor's in Economics from the Presidency College, Calcutta, though his interest was always in fine arts. At the cost of academics, he was spending more and more time and energy on his two new interests, watching films and listening to Western classical music on his gramophone. After hearing a symphony a couple of times, Satyajit could actually whistle the entire composition very easily. He graduated in 1939 and at the age of 18, he decided to give up his further studies. But the desire to learn more about Indian art, his mother's wish for him to continue his studies, and the lure of Tagore was too strong to ignore. So he went to Shantiniketan to study art. This study drew his attention to the symbolism in Indian art, to the finer details that signify bigger meaning, a quality that his films demonstrated greatly. Now Satyajit was deeply conscious of the financial hardships his mother had to face. He would be apologetic in his letters for spending some extra amount of money, even though it was used to buy Japanese painting brushes for his artwork. In 1947, he decided, along with his few friends, Satyajit co-founded Calcutta's first film society. In the meanwhile, he had developed another interest of writing screenplays for his own pleasure. Now Satyajit's real-life love story was nothing less than a Bollywood drama. He and his cousin Bijoya, they developed romantic feelings for each other while listening to music every day. They dated for 8 long years, married secretly, and finally convinced the two families to accept the match. When Satyajit entered into filmmaking, his ideas were radical and against conventional norms. He wanted to use actual locations to shoot his film, to have new faces for his movies, and his actors be without any makeup. Now he remained very accessible to all the people throughout his own career. He had no secretary, he answered his phone calls himself, and if you happened to knock at his door at any odd hour, there was a chance that he would open the door himself. He got offers to work in a lot of new projects, both from Bollywood and Hollywood, but he politely refused every time, saying that he would never be happy working away from Bengal. He made 36 films, which included 29 feature films, 5 documentaries, and 2 short films. And almost every movie was awarded and recognized as a piece of art. A mind-boggling achievement indeed. Satyajit was an epitome of integrity, a titan in the world of cinema. He is not only great, he is the greatest. Thank you.
Thank you, Neha. When Ray was 22, his mother took him to an astrologer. The astrologer predicted that your son will become famous through the use of light. And famous he did become. Of the several facets of this one-man army we know as Satyajit Ray, one is Ray the artist, Ray the designer, Ray the aesthetically vibrant Manikda. We have Dr. Monica and Dr. Preeti to tell us more about this.
Good evening, everyone. As we take you through Satyajit Ray's journey as a graphic designer, we assure you that it is going to be a great journey. According to his son Sandeep, he was, without knowing it, India's first graphic designer. Here's an ode to the great maestro.
Mr. Ray made awesome movies. I'm sure we all know that. But what he did before this stuff is what we are getting at.
Brilliant he was, through and through. An artist he was born. He sketched, he painted, he wrote and typed, and had prowess on every graphic form.
His calligraphy was a joy to behold. His fonts, internationally acclaimed, we are told. He drew his scenes set by set. His unsurpassed talent we can never forget.
As we start his journey as a graphic designer, we assure you there has been no one finer. He was creative beyond compare. As an incredible illustrator, he had a flair.
We know that Satyajit Ray was a wizard behind the camera, and he wielded the mighty pen with great finesse.
In Ray's world, colors clashed, fonts frolicked, and creativity ran wild. He created 4 fonts for the English language: Ray Roman, Ray Bizarre, Daphnis and Holiday. He received an award for the typeface Ray Roman.
Ray was prolific as an illustrator, and he designed many book covers too. Prominent among them are Discovery of India by Jawaharlal Nehru, Leela Majumdar's Jonaki, and Man-Eaters of Kumaon.
Ray designed the covers of some English children's magazines too. Ekhon and Sandesh are some of the famous ones. Feluda was a fictional character created by Ray, who was a detective. In total, there are 335 Feluda stories, which are hugely popular as the comic Tintin.
Ray designed the posters of his movies too, and they are memorable for their elegant simplicity and minimalism. The poster of Baby is probably one of Ray's most recognizable and iconic designs. The poster for Pathir Panchali gives us a window into the life of young Appu along with his mother and sister Durga. The image is set inside a circle resembling traditional Alpna art.
A master class in minimalism. The poster for Charulata shows a portrait of the protagonist created simply with a brush stroke. He manages to bring out the longing and pathos of Charulata effortlessly. Bright colors and the trademark floating head are seen on the posters of the film Nayak. The character was played by the famous Uttam Kumar.
The striking poster of Ghore Baire uses the play of light and shadow to create depth and contrast, depicting a woman standing at the threshold of the outside world.
Mahanagar's photographic poster features the film's most memorable image, where we see the exploration of a woman's journey towards independence and self-discovery, depicted on the poster by the protagonist applying lipstick. Ray is known for creating some quirky ad campaigns too. His famous ad campaigns were for Margot soap, Brill cream, Java Kusum hair oil, and Bata too.
Much like Alfred Hitchcock, he was famous for spending significantly long periods of time setting up shots as he wanted every detail to be exactly as he imagined it. He was known to sketch out scenes in his scripts because of which his movies had the ability to draw audiences right into the moment.
Though Ray may have left us, his designs continue to inspire and delight. From Bollywood to Broadway, his influence can be felt far and wide. Let us give it up for the unsung hero of graphic design, Satyajit Ray. His artistic vision continues to inspire people around the world. Thank you.
Thank you.
He was one of the last of India's Renaissance men. He was so multi-talented that I thank Dr. Preeti and Dr. Monica for enlightening us on this rather unknown aspect of Ray's multi-talent. Ray was not only an accomplished filmmaker, he was also a gifted storyteller. No household in Bengal is complete without the stories written by Satyajit Ray. Feluda and Professor Shambhu. These two amazing characters created by Satyajit Ray are part of our collective cultural heritage. I invite the trinity of Dr. Sarika, Anupama and Shipra to throw light on this fascinating aspect and this beautiful world of Satyajit Ray's stories. Dr. Sarika and company.
कितनी ज़्यादा लाइटनिंग हो रही है और ये बारिश हो रही है. Oh God.
This is Mr. Brown's cottage.
Or you have got me here to see Mr. Simon's ghost who was killed here due to lightning and thunder?
Yes, it's written in his diary that Mr. Simon's ghost comes every evening at 7 o'clock and sits near the fire.
Oh my God, dear, that diary is 100 years old. Do you think the ghost is going to come today also?
So we have to find it out, Anu. Let's sit and play cards. We have to wait till 7 o'clock.
Okay, as you say, but मुझे तो बहुत डर लग रहा है कितना goofy है सब अंधेरा है.
तुम तो हमेशा ही डरती बहुत हो. Oh, it's nothing, Anu. It's just a cat. हमेशा इतना मत डरा करो.
I'm very scared. Why you have to come here 100 years old?
We have to find Mr. Simon. Ghost.
Oh, God. Oh. Look there, Shipra. Look. Oh, look.
Mr. Simon is not a man, but a cat.
And this is a cat's ghost? Oh, God.
Yes, Ray was superstitious and he did believe in the paranormal too. And this was evident in all his stories, especially in Brown Sahar Poti. And did you know that this ran in his family? Once, Ray was given the work to make a film on Revered, for which he was given access to his entire library. There, Ray finds a document written by his own father, in which he reveals that he had a premonition of his own death. Can you believe this? Yeah. And even his great-grandfather was a tantric. So this thing actually ran in his blood.
Very true, Sarika.
And you know, this streak of spiritualism and mysticism surfaces yet in another story in Agra.
Yes. Oh, so let me tell you how Khagum was written. So, while directing this movie, Gopi Gayan Baga Bayan, Satyajit Ray was, yes, he was really extensively traveling all around Rajasthan. So while he was in Bharatpur, a young boy walked up to him and told him a story about a Tantric Baba. Okay, and what was so peculiar about this Tantric Baba? That he had a pet, a snake as a pet, right? So this story narrated by a local boy really intrigued him, and he used this in his next story, Khagum, where a man maliciously kills the snake, Khagum, not knowing that he will turn into a snake himself, as cursed by Imli Baba in the book. On that bloody, long, chilling night.
Oh my, it's scary. Ray was passionate about horror stories. Do you remember reading Friends?
Yes, I do.
Where a young boy was gifted a puppet. And when that puppet was torn into bits and pieces by dogs, that boy buried the pieces under a tree. After several years, when he returns and digs up the same spot, to his shock, he finds there a little skeleton.
I remember that.
No, it's so goofy.
Yes, well, Ray wrote many science fictions too. And at a time when India was not technologically so advanced.
It happened in the 60s, right? Yeah.
Yes. You know, in his famous series, Professor Shanku could time travel. And in his story, Anukul, a robo kills a man because it could benefit his master. And in Dr. H. you remember, he's a plastic surgeon doing surgery in some remote town of West Bengal, in which he creates long ears for himself. And he creates a creature with a tail far all over his body. And he even kills a man to get round eyes for his creatures.
I remember that. That was really scary. And you know, it gave me goosebumps when I read it. So, but I really want to move from here further and talk something mild and nice and soothing. So let's talk about a movie. So, let me just imagine a UFO lands in America, right? An alien comes out of it, walks out of it, and befriends a young boy. Does this ring a bell?
Yes.
Anyone who knows this movie name? E.T.
That's right.
Okay, perfect. E.T. So, this is the famous movie, Hollywood movie, made by Steven Spielberg. And what I am here to tell you is that
2 decades before this movie was even made, Satyajit Ray had written a script for a movie of his own called Alien, where identically the spacecraft had to land in Bengal, an alien would walk out of it and befriends a young Bengali boy. Similar, isn't it? What happened was, further, that there was a very famous director in Hollywood who saw the premiere of E.T. and immediately he called up Satyajit Ray in Bengal, in Calcutta, and he said, "My dear friend, Spielberg has stolen your script and made E.T. Please file a copyright case upon him." But Ray being Ray, the creator, the story writer, the storyteller, he said, "No, I will not get into it," and he never filed a case against Mr. Spielberg.
Enough of crime science fictions. What about his crime stories? I like his.
I like Feluda too.
Feluda is the most interesting. Arthur C. Doyle created a legendary Sherlock Holmes. Satyajit created Feluda, a Bengali detective who resides at 21 Rajni Sen Road, just like 21 Baker Street. Sherlock had assistant Watson, and Feluda had Topsy. Feluda is a collection of stories filled with adventure till the very end, and they were so popular that they were made into movies, TV serials, and even radio plays.
Very true, very true. Ray's stories are about ordinary people in extraordinary situations. Allow me to end this storytelling session by Ray's very own words. For me, pauses are very important. Something happening, waiting for the words, and when the words come, you have to wait. Namaskar, storytelling from Satyajit Ray.
Thank you so much, Sarika, Anupama and Shipra. Short stories were the inspiration for 14 of Satyajit Ray's movies, each one of them a classic. From the dramatic to the starkly real, from the humorous to the dark, from the lyrical to the prosaic, they sparkle with narrative brilliance. His short film, based on Premchand's story, is the most powerful broadside against the caste system, the angriest and the grimmest. Ladies and gentlemen, presenting before you, Sadgati.
A wonderful Ray evening, dear friends. Today is all about Satyajit Ray, the narrator, the artist, the essayist, the calligrapher, the graphic designer, the scientist, the storyteller, the music composer, but above all, the filmmaker. Each film he made was a complete work of art and steeped in the quintessential Ray passion. Ray said that cinema's characteristic forte is the ability to capture and communicate the intricacies of the human mind. And by Jove, he exemplified his words ad infinitum in each one of his films. Today, we present a short enactment of a film he made in 1980, Sadgati. The script is based on Munshi Premchand's short story, Sadgati, that was published in 1931. The central theme of the play is untouchability and the caste discrimination. Here, we would like to add a disclaimer that the words used in the play, the castiest words used in the play, are according to the script and according to those times. We have no intention of hurting the sentiments or offending any person, caste, or group of people. I think this was the only short film he made for television. Is that so? Yes, that's correct. Sadgati or Deliverance is a 45 minutes made-for-TV drama which was written, scored and directed by Satyajit Ray. Premchand's story is relatively straightforward but bitterly ironic. Ray's artistry lay in the way he elegantly transformed this short narrative into a cinematic form. The story covers a lowly tanner's frustrated efforts over the course of a single day to get an audience with the local Brahmin priest just to set a date for the forthcoming marriage of his daughter, Dhanya.
धनिया, तेरे बापू कहाँ है रे? अरे सुनो।
क्या हुआ?
भूल गए क्या? पंडित जी के यहाँ जाना था सवेरे।
अरे भूला हुआ नहीं हूँ। कुछ भेंट वेंट लेके जाऊंगा, खाली हाथ थोड़े ही चले जाऊंगा।
ये खास भेंट के लिए है?
और नहीं तो क्या? तू जा अपना काम कर। उनको बिठाएगी कहाँ ये सोच।
खाट पे बैठेंगे ना?
हमारी खटिया पर।
मुखिया जी कैसे देंगे खाट?
पगला तो नहीं गई है। आपके लिए अंगार देते नहीं, तुझे खटिया दे देंगे।
फिर?
ऐसा कर, धनिया से कह, महुआ के पत्ते तोड़ लाए, उसी की आसनी बना लेंगे।
हाँ।
और सुन, पंडित जी को सीधा भी देना है।
सीधा? उसके लिए तो थाल लगेगी।
धनिया से कह, महुआ के पत्तों की पत्तल बना ले। सुना है बड़े पवित्र होते हैं। बड़े बड़े बड़े।
अरे क्या हुआ? चक्कर आए क्या?
ठीक हूँ। ऐसा कर, साहू जी की दुकान से धनिया की सामग्री तू ले आई हो सीधे।
क्या क्या?
1 सेर आटा, आधा सेर चावल, 1 पाव दाल, आधा पाव घी, नॉन और हल्दी। याद रहेगा?
हाँ।
सुना?
1 सेर चावल,
1 सेर आटा,
1 सेर आटा,
आधा सेर चावल,
आधा सेर चावल,
1 पाव दाल,
1 पाव दाल,
आधा पाव घी,
आधा पाव घी,
नॉन,
हल्दी।
और पत्तल के किनारे चवन्नी रख दियो, छुइयो मत।
नहीं।
चलो चलो।
सुनो, आज मत जाओ, कल चले जाना। अभी तो बुखार से उठे हो।
अरे चले जाएंगे वो, तू फिक्र मत कर, मैं ठीक हूँ। बुखार के मारे अभी तक नहीं जा पाया।
फिर कुछ खा के तो जाओ। फिर सुबह से अभी तक दाना नहीं गया पे।
अरे आके खा लूंगा, तू फिक्र मत कर।
और रास्ते में चक्कर आए तो?
तू क्यों फिक्र कर रही है? सारी तैयारी रख इधर।
Tukhi walks to Pandit Ghasiram's house carrying a bundle of grass as a gift. Pandit Ghasiram is busy doing his prayers and rituals. So Tukhi waits at the door. He thinks to himself, what a divine godlike persona he is beholding. A Pandit to be revered and respected. He sits humbly with his hands folded and his head bowed.
महाराज।
कौन है?
दुखी महाराज, आप ही से मिलने आया था महाराज।
कहाँ है?
बिटिया की सगाई कर रहा हूँ महाराज। दया करके चल लेते, साइड सगुन की बात हो जाती महाराज।
फिर तुम क्या समझते हो? मैं यहाँ खाली बैठा हूँ।
अरे नहीं महाराज, एक साल ये तैयारी करके आया हूँ महाराज।
ऐसा कर, वो झाड़ू रखी है, उसे जरा बरामदे की झाड़ू लगा दे।
जी महाराज।
अभी ना मैं आऊंगा जब मुझे फुर्सत होगी।
जी महाराज। इसका क्या करूं महाराज?
कहिया के सामने डाल दे।
जी महाराज।
In awe of the Pandit, Dukhi hastily picks up the broom and begins to sweep the floor. He is satisfied that the Pandit shall come to his house and announce a propitious date for his daughter's wedding. But the miserly Pandit is thinking that the house needs to be cleaned and some other menial tasks need to be performed. So maybe he can take advantage of Dukhi and get all that work done for free.
झाड़ू लगा दी महाराज।
अच्छा दुखिया, अब ऐसा कर, घर के बाहर सड़क पर गोदाम है, वहाँ भूसा पड़ा है, उसे भूसेली में डाल दे।
जी महाराज।
और ना भूसा डालकर ऐसा करना, ये बट के नीचे कुंडा पड़ा है ना जो, इसके छोटे छोटे चेले कर देना।
तो महाराज।
Dukhi is so completely grounded under the weight of tradition and Brahmanical superiority that he considers himself a nonentity before the spiritual might of the Brahman. He has learned from his ancestors that serving the upper castes is their destiny, and he tries to serve with devotion. Hence he gladly accepted orders from Pandit Ghasiram, even though he was unwell and hadn't eaten a single morsel of food since the morning. His obeisance to the Pandit is innocent, deep-rooted, and unquestioning.
आजा बच्चा, तो मैं तुम्हें बता रहा था कि जिस प्रकार इंसान अपने पुराने कपड़े त्याग कर नए कपड़े धारण करता है, उसी प्रकार आत्मा भी पुराना शरीर, जर्जर शरीर छोड़कर नया शरीर धारण करती है। तो तेरी घरवाली भले ही शरीर से मर गई हो, आत्मा उसकी अभी भी जिंदा है। समझ गए? तो फिर काहे परेशान हो रहे हो? दूसरा ब्याह कर लो, अभी तो तुम जवान हो, है ना? और कहाँ शास्त्रों में लिखा है कि तुम दूसरा ब्याह नहीं कर सकते? अरे मुझे ही देख लो, ये मेरी तीसरी पत्नी है। पहली पत्नी 7 महीने में ही परलोक से धार गई, फिर मैंने दूसरा ब्याह किया, दूसरी भी चली गई, सांप ने काटा था, करैत था, टकने पर 2 घंटे में ही चली गई। फिर मैंने तीसरा ब्याह किया। अपने सगे बिछुड़ने से कोई जीवन तो नहीं रुकता है, वो तो चलता ही रहता है। क्या चाहिए दुखिया? लकड़ी चीर डाली?
महाराज।
अरे गोदाम में होगी ना। देखो हमारा तो धर्म है कि हम ब्याह करें और अपना वंश चलाएं, ठीक है? जी महाराज।
The weary Dukhi struggles to chop the wood, since that is not his regular work. The oppressive heat and his hunger make it even more difficult for him. So he pulls out some tobacco, thinking that smoking might energize him, and he walks to the Pandit's house to ask for a piece of coal to light the tobacco.
महाराज।
अजी सुनते हो, ये बार-बार यहाँ क्यों आ रहा है?
अरे मुझे अपने घर ले जाएगा, अपनी बिटिया का सबून निकलवाना है ना।
इस भरी तो घड़िया में जाओगी क्या?
अरे नहीं, इसे काम दिया है, पहले वो तो कर ले।
अरे क्या काम?
लकड़ी चीरने का।
थोड़ी आदि मिल जाती चिल्लम के लिए।
अरे देखो, ये तो आग कांप रहा है।
अरे तो दे देना थोड़ी आदि।
तुम्हें तो कोई धर्म का सुबुध ही नहीं रह गया हो। धोबी हो, पासो, चमारो, सबको घर में घुसा लो, है? हिंदू का घर नहीं कोई सराय होगा। कह दो इसको यहाँ से चले जाए तो गठुआ देके मारूंगी इसे।
अरे हमारा भी तो काम कर रहा है, इसके लिए किसी मजदूर को रखा होता तो कम से कम 1 रुपया लेता। दे दे आदि थोड़ी।
ठीक है। अब कह दो इससे यहाँ से चला रहा है, नहीं तो उसका मुंह छुटका दूंगी।
अरे क्षमा करे माई, तो सीधे घर में घुसा आया। इतना बुरा खाना होता तो काहे लाल दूध से खाता।
आपको कुछ खाने को मिला क्या? अरे कहाँ मिला होगा, सुबह से यही तो है।
अरे वो लकड़ी कैसे चीरेगा?
तो दे देना कुछ खाने को। क्या होगा कुछ घर में?
2-4 रोटियां पड़ी होंगी।
2-4 में इसका क्या होगा? कम से कम सेर भर लगेगा।
इसको भैया में कौन बना? अजी देखिए दो।
जाने क्यों ना निकल जाए? छोड़ो ना नहीं, चीर दूंगा।
Tukhi was a dedicated believer in the social system in which he lived, even though he was an outcast. And so, he wanted to serve the Brahmin with diligence and respect. But by now, he was hungry and exhausted. In spite of that, he went back to the logs. Suddenly forlorn, he is overcome by a fit of sobbing at his sheer helplessness and misery.
दुखिया सो गए क्या? दुखिया सो गए?
वहां से कुछ नहीं खाया महाराज।
एक तो क्या फर्क पड़ता है, घर जाओ काम खत्म करो, पर खाना डट के किसने रोका है? फिर देखो ये कुंदा तो ज्यों का त्यों पड़ा है, फिर ऐसे साइड निकालूंगा बिटिया का, मुझको दोष मत देना। हाथ में तो जैसे तुम्हारे दम ही नहीं है। अरे लगा हनहना के चीर डाल। दुखिया फिर सो गया? ए दुखिया फिर सो। अरे सुन रही हो? अरे सुन रही हो? दुखिया मर गया।
अरे कौन दुखिया? वो तो लकड़ी चीर रहा था।
अरे लकड़ी चीरते मर गया।
अरे सो रहा होगा।
मुझे क्या जिंदा मुर्दा की पता नहीं है।
तो है घबरा लो, जाओ जमार बत्ती जाओ, खबर पहुंचवा दो, फिर खा के ले जाना।
नहीं, बात ऐसी है कि तुम्हें बताऊं, तुम मेरी बात सुनो।
क्यों यूं तो कर रहे हो? बीमार था, लकड़ी चीर रहा था, मर गया। बीमार होगा, नींद के चलो, मरते नहीं।
मरते हैं।
हाँ, तो तुम्हें पता था वो मर जाएगा?
नहीं, बिल्कुल नहीं।
जाओ जमार बस्ती में खबर जाओ।
The Brahmin and his wife are not necessarily evil people, but they are situated inside a system that validates injustice, and they take advantage of it for their own selfish gains. Now a group of Brahmins collect outside Pandit Khasiram's house and asks him to remove the body, since it is a very serious matter. Serious because the body is lying on the path through which they have to get water for their houses. So the troubled Pandit goes to Dukhi's basti and asks them to remove the body, but they all refuse. Meanwhile, Julia is anxiously waiting for her husband to return home, since he has been gone for a long time. And now she runs out agitatedly, fearing that something untoward has happened.
Hey Bhagwan! Hey Bhagwan!
अरे उठो
मैं चुप नहीं बैठूंगी महाराज, मैं चुप नहीं बैठूंगी। ये पुलिस का मामला है महाराज, मैं चुप नहीं बैठूंगी महाराज। ये बामन देवता नहीं सब करा है, मैं चुप नहीं बैठूंगी महाराज।
बड़ी मत मारी लगी थी कि तुमने उससे लकड़ी छीनने को कहा।
मुझे क्या पता था कि खाली पेट आएगा।
इतना काम कराया बेचारे से इस कड़ी मेहनत में।
क्या मेहनत लोग करते नहीं है, सब मर जाते हैं क्या?
खाने को तुमसे खाना,
मैंने कहा था तुमसे खाने को, दिया क्यों नहीं तुमने?
मैंने कहा था कि तुमने कहा था,
तो दिया तुमने। अब सारा दोष मेरे सिर मार दो।
अरे पुलिस आ गई तो?
नहीं, पुलिस नहीं आएगी इस बारिश में, पुलिस नहीं आएगी, पुलिस नहीं आएगी।
तो मुर्दा बनाने लगेगा तो है, और तुम उठा नहीं सकते, उठाने वाले आ निकले ना, कमरा क्या कहेंगी? अरे फिर बताओ।
चुप करो, अपनी बात बंद करो, सोचने दो मुझे, सोचने दो।
And this, my friends, is where the title of the story interrelates to the end of the story. Sadgati, Dukhi Sadgati, his deliverance. Fallen dead at the behest of the Pandit, whom he revered like God, and moved onwards perhaps to a better space, Sadgati. His death evokes compassion and empathy and pulls us out of our stupor to rise and challenge the wrongs prevalent in society. It is difficult not to feel Dukhi's anguish towards the end.
Oh yes, absolutely. But now, before the next day dawns, Pandit Khasiram realizes that no one will be coming to remove the untouchable body of Dukhi from outside his house. Moreover, if the body is reported, it will bring the police to investigate the cause of death. So, the high and mighty Pandit Khasiram and his arrogant wife Lakshmi take it upon themselves to drag the body across the field and dump it far from the house. The untouchable has been touched. Sadgati was awarded the best film by the special jury in the 29th National Film Awards, and it also garnered many special comments of praise. 1. It is an unknown masterpiece by Ray. 2. It has the power of all the stories from Russia. 3. What a beautiful picture. What a great puzzle of poetry. 4. Smita Patil Akka Jhuria's scream when she learns of the tragic fate of her husband is unforgettable. 5. It is Ray's cruelest film till date. Ray himself said that Sadgati is a deeply angry film. Not the anger of an exploding bomb, but of a bow, stretched taut and quivering. Thank you. Please welcome on stage the cast of Sadgati. Lakshmi, played by the versatile Divya Mohit. The shrewd Pandit Khasiram, essayed by Puja Bansal. The subtle yet startling portrayal of Jhuria by Smriti Agarwal. And Dukhi, the hard-working yet soft-hearted outcast, enacted by Mohit Mahajan. And the narrators, Nicky and Sudha.
That was indeed brilliant performance, heart-rending and heart-wrenching. Congratulations, Team Sadgati, for that wonderful performance. Satyajit Ray had an interesting Agra connection. You see him here at the Taj Mahal with two of his friends, the world-renowned filmmaker Mr. Akira Kurosawa, who said that not having seen the movies of Satyajit Ray is like not having seen the sun and the moon. And the other is Michael Antonioni, one of the famous filmmakers from Italy. A very interesting fact, some of you might not know, is that one of his major producers was Mr. R.D. Bansal. Mr. R.D. Bansal belonged to Bansal building in Agra and migrated to Calcutta. Even the famous Charulata was produced by Mr. R.D. Bansal. That's a very interesting connection that Agra has with Satyajit Ray and his movie making. Satyajit Ray not only made movies for adults, he was equally, if not more passionate about making movies for children. He believed that for making movies for children, you had to think with the mind of an adult, but you had to feel with the heart of a child. And he said that movies for children were the hardest to make. The child in Satyajit Ray was alive and kicking. I invite Mrs. Abha Saha and Mrs. Aparna Poddar for enlightening us some of these aspects of the movies that he made for children.
Satyajit Ray and films have become synonymous with each other. But before making films, he revived a magazine for children called Shondesh, and thus began his journey of understanding the child's psychology. He made translations, wrote poems, stories, and finally started making films for children. However, his movies were not merely for youngs. They charmed adults too and became all-time favorites in Bengal. Abha, while exploring Ray, I noticed that he has focused on a certain quality of children. Will you please elaborate on that?
Yes, Aparna. He mostly portrayed the quiet child. His quiet children are deep thinkers and observers. You can find them in films like Joy Baba Feluna, Piku's Diary and Agantuk. Children in his movies were listeners of stories, like Satyaki in Agantuk, whose grandfather tells him stories about cave paintings, about tribes who were armadillo meat eaters, and the mysterious land of Machu Picchu. In Joy Baba Feluna, we find a young boy of 5 or 6 listening to mythological stories told by his family Durga idol maker. Another example of quiet child is the gloomy boy Mukul in Sonar Kela, who is unable to sleep as he is disturbed by his nocturnal dreams of his previous life. He keeps himself occupied with drawing and painting throughout the night.
And there was Appu, who was Ray's obsession and on whom he made an entire trilogy. You will hear more about him later in the evening. At this moment, I wish to emphasize one important point, and that is that children in his films are not mere puppets. They are intelligent, have a mind of their own, and are mature, even precocious, one might say. We find this trait in Parosh Pathor, where the boy next door discovers the magical qualities of the stone, but he remains silent. And in another movie, Postmaster, the orphan girl Ratan, she proves to be way more mature than the postmaster in the way she handles an imminent separation from her Dada Babu. Could you tell us more about girl artists in Ray's movies?
The prominent female characters in his movies are Durga from Pothe Panchali, Ratan from Postmaster, Doyamoi from Devi, and Mrinmoi from Samahu. All four have different personalities, and their blossoming from childhood to womanhood is tackled very realistically by Ray. Aparna, you must tell the audience about Two, a 12-minute classic silent movie made by him.
Yes, in Two, he depicts the disparity between the rich and poor through two young boys. One, a rich spoiled boy standing in the balcony of the mansion, and the other, a poor boy of the same age in the street below. Both of them are bored and want to play. The rich boy flaunts and displays his expensive toys in front of the poor boy, who is happy with his cheap and handmade toys like flute, like kite. This short film ends on an ironic note as the electronic robot walks towards the tower made by the rich boy and topple it. The entire short film is a symbolic reflection on how civilization can be the reason for its own destruction. Critics often find the conflict between the rich and poor similar to the conflict between Vietnamese and Americans, Indians and Britishers, and in general, simplicity and arrogance. So, should we sum up now,
Aparna, before summing up, I must mention two super hit movies made for children by him, which have a deep underlying message. Gopi Gayan Bhagabai and Hirak Raja Deshi. In fact, a song from Gopi Gayan Bhagabai is still so popular that there is a chain of restaurants by that name in Kolkata, and inside the decor is all from the film. The song means that the king of ghosts has given me 3 great boons. It goes like this. Bhute Raja Dilobor, Jobor Jobor Teen Bor, Ek Dui Teen, Ek Dui Teen, Ja Chai Porte Khete Pari, Ek Number, Ek Number, Je Khan Khushi Jaite Pari, Dui Number, Dui Number, Sani Dhapa Magare Sagaite Pari, Teen Number, Teen Number, Kemono Shundor, Bhute Raja Dilobor. Thus, Ray's movies not only entertain his young audience, but also describe the reality of life, convey moral values, and inform them about social and political issues. The biggest message he wants to convey to his children through his characters is Kupe Bang Hoyona.
Do not be a frog in the well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Abaji and Aparnaji. Women, the most mysterious creation of God. How did Ray deal with them? Women in the movies of Satyajit Ray are multifaceted and complex. They work hand in hand with their male counterparts without a sense of competition. They reflect the changing women of the 1960s. They are educated, they are free-spirited, they baffle, they intrigue. To tell us more about the portrayal of women in the movies of Ray, we have Shweta and Dr. Deepika.
Patriarchal ideologies are deeply embedded in Indian culture, a culture with ambivalent attitude towards women. On one hand, a woman is equated with a great goddess, and on the other, she is subjected to the symbolic male principle where she is confined to the Andar Mahal, a secluded part of the house, shackled into womanhood with her first breath in the society. Indian cinema too portrayed the angry young man archetype, with women as eye candy or irrelevant showpieces next to them.
And then enters Satyajit Ray with his revolutionary female characters, a head-on collision between tradition and modernity. His women protagonists became contemporary to men, not only equals. They were strong women who didn't hesitate to break barriers. Their perpetual state of distress was channeled into positivism. The Ray heroine bears simplicity, yet they are nuanced. She asserts desires and defies barriers. Don't you think that Satyajit Ray portrayed this through his films?
Absolutely. He believed in positive feminism. In Paghe Panchali, Sarvajaya portrays a vulnerable mother, but also she is a strong, dignified woman who resolves to save her family from extreme dire poverty. She is grief-stricken but hides it well. Take Aarti in Mahanagar. She transforms from a traditional middle-class homemaker to a working wife to shoulder the responsibility of her family after her husband loses his job. In Ghare Baire, Ray explores the theme of nationalism and the role of women in the Indian struggle.
And also I feel that films have a strong lasting impact on the human psyche, or maybe I should say the female psyche, and maybe thus started an era of modern women.
Modern working women, I'd say.
Correct.
On that note, Satyajit Ray's cinematic treasure Devi, where the ethereal and the earthly collide in a captivating narrative. Amidst the lush landscapes of rural Bengal, it is a tale of intrigue and introspection, casting spotlight on the enigmatic Doyamai. A vision received in a dream convinces Kali Kinkar that his doting daughter-in-law, the 17-year-old Doyamai, is an incarnation of Mother Goddess. Swiftly, the young girl is placed on a pedestal, swarmed by incense-wielding priests and supplicants. Her frightened, tear-streaked face deters no one.
However, her husband Uma Prasad is a rational, educated man. When Uma Prasad returns from his university in Kolkata to his house, he finds Doya sitting on the floor of a shrine, looking so small, so diminutive, next to the big men that surround her. When Uma Prasad tries to flee to Kolkata with Doya, Doya spots a Durga Puja idol half buried in the sand by the river. Doya sees this as a sign from the universe. She refuses to go further and delivers in a trembling voice the film's most poignant line. What if I am a goddess?
If you were, wouldn't you know it? Uma Prasad counters, but Doya does not know. It is perhaps Ray's tongue-in-cheek critique of feminism that led him to render the girl a goddess and demonstrate how a pedestal in itself still might not be enough for a well-rounded sense of value. इसी बात से एक बड़ी दिलचस्प बात मुझे ध्यान आई सत्यजीत रे के बारे में। तुम्हें राज कपूर की संगम याद है?
वही जिसमें विजेंद्री वाला हीरोइन थी।
हाँ, उसमें दो दोस्त अपनी दोस्ती निभाने के लिए अपनी प्रेमिका को एक दूसरे के ऊपर कुर्बान करते रहते हैं और उससे कोई पूछ ही नहीं रहा है कि भाई तुम्हें कौन पसंद है। उसी दौरान सत्यजीत रे की चारुलता क्या कमाल की हीरोइन थी, कॉन्फिडेंट, पढ़ी लिखी and somebody who's so aware of her needs and desires.
तुम्हें ऐसा नहीं लगता कि रे की एक अलग पैरेलल सिनेमा चल रही थी जो कि हमारे मेन स्ट्रीम बॉलीवुड में शायद 80s में सामने आई, जहां एक तरफ जितेंद्र श्रीदेवी की ओवर द टॉप मूवीज का बोलबाला था, वहीं दूसरी तरफ शबाना आजमी और स्मिता पाटिल की मूवीज जैसे वारिस, बाजार, मिर्च मसाला, अर्थ, इन मूवीज की पिक्चरें थीं जो समाज की सच्चाई से काफी करीब थी।
एंड नॉट टू फॉरगेट विमेन ओरिएंटेड थी।
एब्सोल्युटली।
एक कहानी पढ़ी थी मैंने कुछ समय पहले, राजेंद्र सिंह प्रीति की कहानी, पोस्ट पार्टीशन की कहानी है। उसमें सुंदरलाल की पत्नी जब अगुवाइयों के चंगुल से वापस आती है तो वो उसे देवी बना बैठता है। उससे पहले वो उसे मारता पीटता था पर फिर भी लाजवंती उससे खुश ही रहती थी। अब जब वो उसे देवी मानता है तो लाजवंती को अपना वही पुराना पति चाहिए। I brought in this little story because I think at the end of the day no woman wants a pedestal, literally or symbolically. सदियों से हमारे समाज की यही तो विडंबना है, या तो हम औरत को देवी मानते हैं या कुछ नहीं।
However, for Ray, women were not the second sex, but the stronger one. He himself said, I find women more interesting. They have a stronger spine, a stronger character, a stronger fiber, a natural integrity.
Well, on that note, we'll say, kudos to his portrayal of women.
Thank you, Dr. Deepika and Shweta, for that wonderful presentation on Ray's portrayal of women. Next to films, music was Ray's another love. In the early part of his movie-making career, he worked with some of the greatest maestros of Indian classical music, like Pandit Ravi Shankar, Ustad Vilayat Khan, and Ustad Ali Akbar Khan. But Ray had so many musical ideas of his own. That 1961 onwards, with the movie Teen Kanya, he started creating music for his own movies. Ray's music was experimental, and it had elements of both Indian classical music as well as the Western classical music. One of the most noted French conductors and film composer, Michael Zare, said that Ray's music was soul-stirring and haunting. Our musical group will now give you a peek into the beautiful and delightful world of Ray's music.
Of this legendary figure Feluda. The soft yet profound notes encapsulates the intricacies of his character's life. Take for example Charulata's music theme. Charu is a very ordinary looking girl in this movie, but her emotions are all expressed through the music theme of Charulata, and that's exactly what Satyajit Ray does in all his films.
Yeah, you know, really, Satyajit Ray actually he imbibed his music. उनको विरासत में मिला. His mother, his aunt, his uncle, everybody was into music. And then of course he delved into Western classical and Indian classical music. That was his forte. But he got all this from his family. That's his. Hey, you are having Chini no Chini. From Charulata, Kishore Kumar. Wow, Preeti, sing it for us.
আমি চিনি গো চিনি তোমারে ও গো বিদেশিনী তুমি থাকো সিন্ধু পারে ও গো বিদেশিনী তোমায় দেখেছি শারদ প্রাতে তোমায় দেখেছি মাধবী রাতে তোমায় দেখেছি হৃদয় মাঝারে ও গো বিদেশিনী আমি আকাশে পাতিয়া গান শুনেছি শুনেছি তোমার গান আমি তোমারে সঁপেছি প্রাণ গো বিদেশিনী ভুবন ভ্রমিয়া শেষে আমি এসেছি নূতন দেশে আমি অতিথি তোমার দ্বারে ও গো বিদেশিনী আমি চিনি গো চিনি তোমারে ও বোরা পুরাनी
क्या गाते हैं?
Thank you. Actually, Kishore Kumar was not trained in the Ravindric style of singing, so it was a great honor for him when he was asked to sing this song. And you know, he did not charge a penny for it. He told Satyajit Ray that he just wanted him to write a note saying that Kishore was capable of singing Ravindra Sangeet, and that was a reward enough for him.
Kishore वाले की तो खैर बात ही कुछ और थी. You know, he actually donated 5,000 rupees to Satyajit Ray. At one time, Satyajit Ray was broke. पैसा नहीं था उनके पास to make this movie Pathir Panchali, and he donated 5,000 rupees. That's what Kishore Kumar was.
And one more fact about Satyajit Ray I was quite surprised about was that though he was surrounded by Ravindra Sangeet while he was growing up, and he used a lot of Ravindra Sangeet in his movies, but his personal preference was Western classical music.
Yes, indeed. Ray was almost self-taught in his Western classical music. He only got some help from Professor Alex Aronson of Shanti Niketan.
Oh, no wonder, no. When Pandit Ravi Shankar came to Calcutta to perform for Pathir Panchali, he was so mesmerized by Satyajit Ray's in-depth knowledge.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Ray used a lot of Western classical music in his own films. Like in Jalshaghar, he has used the music from the Finnish musician Jean Sibelius.
Oh, that's haunting music.
What haunting music! Very unlike the normal song, music that was being used then. Actually, Ritu, there's a beautiful Thumri in Shatranj Ke Khiladi, sung by Birju Maharaj ji, where Ravi Shankar played the sitar. Please sing it for us.
Was it Shatranj Ki Khiladi, right?
Shatranj.
Interesting movie.
And beautiful music as well.
Yeah, right. What a lovely direction.
गीतों की गाई सुनूंगी हरी नदी में, दूंगी तो भिखारी कान्हा में तो से हारी, छोड़ो सारी कान्हा कान्हा, मैं तो से हारी कान्हा में तो से हारी, छोड़ो सारी निस दिन चेर करत नहीं जाने देत, निस दिन चेर करत नहीं जाने देत, पन घटवा की गेल सकी कान्हा में तो से हारी, कान्हा में तो से हारी, कान्हा में तो से हारी, छोड़ो सारी। So, Ray's knowledge of Indian classical music started at a much later stage when he actually came in increasing contact of these big Indian maestros, because these were the people who were composing music for his first 6 films.
Yes, and this experience came in handy when he was composing music for Gopika and Bakamai and Hirok Raja's Deche. And there's a lovely song in Gopika and Bakamai.
Maharaja.
Maharaja. Chali, let's sing it, please. Maharaja, tomare shelam, shelam, shelam. Mora Bangladesher theke elam. Mora Sharda Shida Matir Manush Deshe Deshe Jai. Modir Bhasha Bhinno Ar Bhasha Jana Nai. Maharaja Raja Moshai, Raja Moshai.
वाह, ब्यूटीफुल। और आपकी आवाज में जादू है, कुछ भी कहिए।
True, in both the films, he diligently avoided using the Western notes, which was actually his forte, and he particularly used specific Indian rags. In fact, that also reminds me of this another very beautiful song from the movie Charulata. And do you remember that song?
Yeah, it goes like Phule phule dhule dhule bohe kiva mridubai thotini hillole tule kallole chaliya jai piko kiva kunje kunje piko kiva kunje kunje gai ki jani kishero lagi pran kore hai hai.
He used some special kind of Indian music also. He has used Shama Shangeet in some of his films, like in Devi, for example, Ritu. There is this beautiful song on Shama Shangeet. It's very beautiful. Surrounded by such great musical maestros, why did he then choose to create his own music? So this is a very important and an interesting fact, and this was a very important turning point in his life as well.
So you see, all these big Indian maestros were not really music composers. ये संगीत जगत की अपनी एक मिसाल थी. So somewhere Satyajit Ray mentions that when he would ask them to create a music or say a video track or an audio track which would last for 17 seconds, they would throw up their hands in the air and say, we are going to play for 3 minutes, you choose what you like. Now that put tremendous pressure on Ray because that was all the work he had to do in the editing room of cutting and putting all that music, and that's when he decided that now is the time for him to start composing music for his own films. And from Teen Konna onwards, he started composing music from 1961.
True.
Yeah.
And actually, after making Gupi Gayan and Hirok Rajardeshe, he started his third film of the series called Gupi Bakha Phirego, which means Gupi and Bakha return. But unfortunately, because of his health problem, he couldn't complete the movie. And his son Sandeep Ray, he finished the movie in 1992,
right,
which is about 12 years after Hirok Raja.
Gee, and that reminds me when you said Sandeep Ray that we were singing this song the other day. And do you remember?
Yes,
yes.
It's a beautiful melody.
And one more thing, you know, that Ray used to play on piano. और बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग बात ये है कि उनके पियानो के ऊपर there was a bust of Beethoven. And probably he got it from somewhere from Briganza, from a local market in Kolkata. And that piano still stands there, and his son Satyajit Ray, Manik Bhatia वो maintain किए हुए. And another important thing about Satyajit Ray is, which everybody will appreciate, that Satyajit Ray used to write in Western notations. And now when he started working अपने हिंदुस्तानी counterpart से, तो he wanted them to understand it. तो उन्होंने उसको translate किया to Hindi notations, which was a big thing, right, Rita?
Absolutely, sir.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So talented. Oh, very. Ritu, I wonder if he had to give advice to the music composers and the film directors of that time, what would it have been?
So, Runadi, Ray believed that all the film directors and music composers should avoid these hackneyed formulas and these worn-out conventions of using certain kind of music to denote happiness and another for sadness and so on. He created a unique form of music in which he combined the Western music and Indian classical music and created his own trademark form. And that actually became, for others to follow, it became like a unique fusion for everyone to follow. And of course, a lot of people followed that. And also, no other film composer and music director has yet matched that kind of score writing like Ray had.
So true.
Yes, yes.
Absolutely. Oh, lovely.
Now this song, it carries a beautiful meaning. देखिए बंगला में है, but I'm just telling you, आसमान बहुत सुंदर है और चारों तरफ खुशियाँ ही खुशियाँ हैं. So this is what the song goes. आकी आनंदो आकाशे बाताशे, आकी आनंदो आकाशे बाताशे, शाखे शाखे पाखी डाके কত শোভা চারিপাশে, আকি আনন্দ আকাশে বাতাসে, আজকে মোদের বড়ই সুখের দিন, আজ ঘরের বাঁধন ছেড়ে মোরা হয়েছি স্বাধীন, আহা হয়েছি স্বাধীন। ভালো? আজ আবার মোরা ভবন ঘুরে মূলক ছেড়ে যাব দূরে, ভরব ভুবন গানের দূরে, পুরানো দিনের কত আসে মনে আসে, ফিরে আসে আখি আনন্দ আকাশে বাতাসে, আখি আনন্দ আকাশে বাতাসে, শাখে শাখে পাখি ডাকে কত শোভা চারিপাশে, আখি আনন্দ আকাশে বাতাসে, আখি আনন্দ আকাশে বাতাসে।
That was indeed marvelous. Thank you, Runa Didi, Dr. Anuj, Dr. Anu and Ritu for this beautiful presentation. So from the soul-stirring and haunting melodies, let's move forward to more mundane matters. The cinema of Ray was many steps removed from Bollywood's Mirch Masala movies of that time. In fact, Ray commented, I want to make the kind of films I want to make. I want to make the kind of films I enjoy making, that engage my mind, my attention, my creativity. That's all I can do. So which films are better? The realistic films or the escapist films? We have our in-house expert, Mohit, to talk about that. I'm sorry.
क्या कहा आपने?
I'm sorry. मैंने गुस्से में कुछ ज्यादा ही बोल दिया।
कोई बात नहीं सेन्योरिटा, कोई बात नहीं। बड़े बड़े देशों में ऐसी छोटी छोटी बातें होती रहती हैं।
I would have liked to ask you which of the two movies we just saw would have been a better chance at the box office. But I think we all know the answer. Let's acknowledge the prevailing reality that the vast majority of audiences perceive cinema primarily as a means of entertainment, not art. We can sit and write long posts, share screenshots and movie clips, debate, discuss, celebrate realistic movies, but it hardly makes an impact. And since numbers prove it, and we can safely assume that viewership is the benchmark for a movie, the fact is that movies are an escape. We can discuss art cinema, the genius of Ray, his techniques, watch his interviews, but outside of a cinephile bubble, there are very few takers of his movies. Cine purists might argue that movies should be seen as a means of escapism, that it should boldly discuss social issues, it should make you reflect, introspect and so on. But these are arguments that have zero to low impact on movie audience. However, the biggest argument against most of Ray movies is that why should someone buy a ticket to be reminded how the poor struggle when their own life sucks? Conversely, for the better off, who would want to watch a movie where they are literally blamed for all the social ills plaguing the society? I never understood realistic movies. I understood one thing. The allure of it rests upon the intention of tapping into our psychological needs. In a roundabout way, let me explain using Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Maslow was a psychologist who categorized human needs and represented them as a pyramid graphically. At the bottom is the basic need of survival: water, food, shelter. Once that is met, it is safety, income, order, consistency, security. Then it's your social needs, friends, love, family, sense of belonging. Fourth rung is esteem, status, dignity, respect, social achievement, and finally, self-actualization, creation, beauty, values, transcendence, a higher purpose. If you are using art in general and movies in particular as a means of entertainment and distraction, then I'm probably hovering around the third rung, social for an escapist movie like DDLJ. But there is a higher place when you need moments of self-actualization, of indulging in art, not as a distraction, not as an escape, but as an examination of internal over the external, of taking stock of what our life is and exploring how the others live. And that is where I would put realistic cinema. Chantal Acumen, a Belgian filmmaker, once said, Often when people come out of a good film, they would say that time flew without them noticing. What I want is to make people feel the passing of time. So I don't take 2 hours from their lives. I make them live them. In Ray's film, the stretching of time, the sounds seen but not heard, of faces glowing in lightning, the urgency of the door latch being twisted and turned, the quiet helplessness, the blank screaming of frustration of pages floating in the wind. Ray's message seems to be, art need not be entertaining or showy. Instead, let the current of life run its cruel, raw course. So should I sip the blissful ignorance, or should I gulp down the unpleasant truth? Art washes away the dust of everyday life. Pablo Picasso once said it. And cliches have a wonderful way of expressing hard truths. Instead of trying to put the world behind us, let's go towards what intimidates us, what makes us tense. We should be able to mirror the realities in art and map them onto ours, as they clear the dust and fog, and remind us that enlightenment lies in places you least want to look. Thank you.
The debate between the art and the commercial cinema is endless. Thank you, Mohit, for throwing light some of these crucial aspects, some of these difficult subjects. Even in Bengal, there is always that debate, who was better, Uttam Kumar of the commercial films or Soumitra Chatterjee from the world of art cinema. We are fortunate that we have a young filmmaker from Mumbai as our special guest today, Kunal Mitra. Kunal is an engineer by profession and a filmmaker by passion. Kunal has been an associate director of a Netflix series called Alma Mater, which you must have seen, about the IIT alumni. He has also been an associate director for another web series for Amazon Prime, which is called Dancing on the Graves. It's a true crime story web series. He's a big name in the field of advertisement films and has made ad films of all the big names in the corporate world. He won the Kaleido Award for the best campaign of the year in 2022 for the ITC campaign. He also made an ad film based on Hirek Rajer Deshe by Satyajit Ray. This was an environmental consciousness movie for spreading climate consciousness. We are fortunate that he is here with us today to enlighten us about the finer aspects of the art and the craft of Satyajit Ray as a great filmmaker. Over to Kunal.
I'll just take a minute of your time to just set this up. Hello everybody, it's a great privilege to be here amidst all of you. I'm an ad filmmaker by profession. Rakesh uncle was also a very close friend of my father. My father unfortunately passed away last year, and this city was very close to him because he was studied here at St. John's College, Agra. So it's quite an emotional moment for me to be here and doing this. So we'll just start. I'm here to discuss the craft of Ray. Obviously, I'm somebody who's just starting out on my journey as a director. So, and I'm talking about somebody of the stature of Satyajit Ray. It's like वो जो हिंदुस्तानी क्लासिकल म्यूजिक में होता है ना, कान पकड़ के बात करता है अपने गुरुजी के बारे में. It's that kind of a feeling. So whatever I'm going to say is basically out of admiration and my feelings and thoughts on the craft of the great man. This is an advert that he had designed. This is way back before he became a filmmaker. This was an advert that he had designed for Philips. And back in the day, it was quite unusual for an advert to not even have the product in the design. There's no bulb over there. All it says is Philips for light, right? And the metaphor here is that a modern woman reading is the light, right? And that is how he placed the brand over there, and that is the genius of Ray, of a modern woman reading a book, and Philips is that source of light, right, by that reflection. In terms of composition and framing, he drew a lot from his own visual aesthetic that he developed as an advertising genius, right, as a designer. If you look at this, these are some stills from from Mahanagar, and here she's a lady who's been thrust into the world where she's going to have to work to earn a living, right? And she wants to do that, but she's also scared. She comes from a sort of a patriarchal setup. Her family back home is not very willing to let her work, right? And this is the first time that she's gone out as a saleswoman for her first sale. And as she approaches the house, we look at the first frame. The way he has composed it is she's behind the bars. It's almost like she's inside a jail of her own making, right? And as she comes, the camera stays, as she comes closer, the camera zooms in a little bit, and there's another static frame here where she looks, she ponders, and then she musters the courage to come outside. So she comes outside of the prison, outside of the bars, and then, if you notice, she's in the shadow in all of these three frames, and then she actually comes into the light, right? And then she goes in to make her first sale. That was the genius of Ray's. Little things like that. This is, I'll play this clip. This is a moment from the same film, from Mahanagar. And this is when the woman, Aarti, is meeting a friend, actually the husband of a friend of hers. And her husband is also there. Her husband, who's currently unemployed, he's sitting there and he notices that his wife walks in and she's meeting another man. And he doesn't know, he doesn't want to reveal that he's over there, but he's overhearing the conversation, right? And how does Ray achieve this in one shot? It's a genius camera movement, and we'll just take a look. So she's telling the man that my husband would say he didn't want me to work because he's like, what will people say? He's actually unemployed, but she doesn't want to reveal that to the other person, right? And she's kind of bigging him up by saying that he's a business owner and he's doing well. I'm just doing it for the passion. I'm doing it for 6 months and then I'll leave. And he's listening on this as an unemployed man. He's sitting over there and listening, and this shot, this camera movement is really sort of, it blew my mind when I saw it, because this is very modern, even for today. And he achieves this back in the day when these kind of things were never done, at least in Indian cinema. So the camera dollies in, and we see the reflection of them and the reflection of the man going from her face, her close-up, into both of them in one frame. The conversation happening and his reaction to that. Again from the same film, this is the husband where he's pondering what to do, how to get another sort of job when he's been laid off, what to do about his own father not approving, his wife working, earning a wage, and there's this duality coming into his nature, and we see that sort of in the shadow and the light, right? There's a part of his body in silhouette and some of it in light, and he's sort of pondering in this moment. Beautiful use of the mirror, where throughout the beginning of this film, Mahanagar, she's not even making eye contact, and this is the first moment when she actually earns her first wage. She's looking into the mirror and she can actually meet her own eye. And a few scenes later, she's putting on lipstick, before going into work. These are sort of really pivotal moments in the film, composed with her own reflection in that mirror. Another iconic shot, this is from Pather Pachari, when the two kids, if you've seen the film, when they see the train for the first time. And the way he's composed this again is a master wide shot, where he could have easily shown the reaction of them and then cut to the train separately, again come back to them. That is the traditional way of doing it, but he set up a master wide shot which shows the awe and the awe of the children, right? Where they are tiny in the frame, and you can see the entire train coming along this whole field. He used to storyboard extensively. All his shots were storyboarded. He was very similar in that sense to Alfred Hitchcock, another great filmmaker, who used to say that once I have storyboarded my shots and I have done my prep, I don't even need to go out and show anybody to do it. Even my AD would shoot the film. That is the level of attention to detail even Mr. Ray had. We'll talk about lighting. Lighting was a very important part of his films, as it is for any film. They made an innovation, him and his cinematographer Shipra. They came up with the concept of bounce lighting. Now bounce lighting, I tell you, this is very common today when we make films, even I use it. But back in the day, what you would do is you would have a source of light on the characters. It would be a harsh light and deep contrasts, and it would have very sort of, it would have a harsh texture on the skin, right? So you would have a very contrasty image. It would not look very aesthetic. It would not be a soft kind of a diffused image. What they came up with is, they started bouncing the light off the walls. It could be bounced off wall, it could be bounced off a silver reflector, it could be bounced off a muslin cloth, sometimes the light. So actually it sounds counterintuitive, but the light was faced away from not facing the characters, but away from the characters. So it would bounce onto the surface and then come onto the characters, creating a very nice diffused kind of a lighting. So if you see over here, these are all examples of frames where he's used bounce lighting. Here, for example, all of this is illuminated with a soft bounce, probably coming from the top around this kind of an angle. And the only other source is here. There's a sort of a practical source, which is a lamp light, which is giving, a rim kind of an effect to the figures, separating them from the background, and also giving them a soft frontal kind of a fill light on the front. It's a basic schematic of how bounce lighting works. So it's bounced off of a surface. The surface could be anything, and the surface determines what the texture of light will then be when it falls on the subject. That's Subrata Mitra, his cinematographer, who played a pivotal role in his films. They were a great team together. Motifs and metaphors, very quickly we'll go through some of the key motifs. The train in the Apu trilogy was an integral motive that he kept going back to. It was there in the first film, Padat Pachala, it was there in the second film, Aparajito, and the third film. And by the time it had different roles to play. In the first film, the train kind of, when they were in the village, the train was a tool that sort of they saw as a device to leave, right? A device to go out and into the city, right? It was almost like a mythical object. It sort of represented possibilities beyond their everyday. They could see the train, but they never thought about getting on it, right? In Aparajito, when he actually migrates into the big city, he sort of again goes back to the train. This is the first shot when he reaches Calcutta, which is this, looks like this big metropolis, very different to the visuals of the village, of course. And then by the third film, when he comes to Opu Shonchar in the third film, there are again multiple shots of the train. And when he reaches, if you've seen the film, there's a shot right at the end where he comes to meet his child who he's almost deserted because the loss of his wife who passed away. He went into sort of a depression. His child was away at his grandparents and he never met him for, I think, the first 5 years of his life, and he goes back to him with a small toy train. Now again, this motive of the train comes back, and now it's playing a very different role. It's a train that he's using to get his child back, right? Sort of as a bribe almost. And they give the train to the child, but the child basically just throws the train away, rejecting the bribe. So it sort of, the whole thing comes back as a different tool, right? Ultimately, the child goes back to him, and this is the last image of Opu Shonchar, and the child goes to the father and says, "Will you take care of me? Only then will I come to you." So he rejects the bribe. The bribe is left with the grandfather, but without it, he goes back to his father. This is the opening scene of Charulata. Again, a beautiful masterclass in silent movie making. So it starts with her sewing, right? So that kind of, the first visual gives us an idea of the role of a woman. So the very first visual gives us an idea of the role of the woman in society, right? It very directly tells you that it's an aristocratic home. We see the house, right? The image of the bird in the cage is introduced at this point. It's a key image that ties into the character herself. She is like a bird in this cage. Her body language kind of makes it seem like she's bored, she's not sure what to do with herself. And there is no use of dialogues for the first 6, 7 or 8 minutes of this film. Can't see the forward please. The house is revealed to be quite aristocratic, as you can see. Her body language, not sure what to do. She has time by herself and she seems bored, right? Now there seems to be a sound coming from the outside. Her gaze changes, she looks in that direction. She has a book, but she's going to also pass on that book because she doesn't want to read as well, right? So she keeps moving from one thing to the other. Another very important image is introduced at this point, which is she's going to take out the binoculars. The famous binocular, which is also finds itself in the poster of the film, and you're going to see it throughout the film, is introduced here. Now she uses it as a sort of a peeping Tom, right? She's fluttering from one window to the other, looking at the world outside. And they are unaware of her presence. So it kind of sets in that mood of she's looking at others, of a world outside from within her cage. And that sort of sets the tone for Charulata, who Charulata is and what her sort of internal struggle is. And from there the movie sort of takes the story forward. And all of this, the genius of Ray is that all of this is kind of achieved without a dialogue at all. It doesn't need to use dialogue. Another metaphor from Jaljaghar, where the Zamindar kind of stays in this derelict palace which is in ruins, but he loves listening to music and he doesn't want to give that up for the world. And he's listening to music when there is this shot he notices of this insect in his drink, and that is followed by this, he notices that, and then he gets the message that his child, his son and his wife have drowned while trying to return back home, right? Now look at this beautiful use of that. This is called foreshadowing, where he foreshadows this imminent disaster about to come with this use of the insect in the glass. And that is sort of, his wife, the news of the wife and the son drowning, sort of comes to him in a few minutes from there. Satyajit Ray's approach to sound in his films was very innovative for the time. He emphasized on sonic realism. The soundscape was very, very realistic. He used actual live sounds. He also did something called direct dubbing, which was unheard of at that time. So direct dubbing is what it is basically. Once you do the take, instead of taking the actors to the dubbing studio, and then because live sync sound wasn't happening at that point, so they would take them to the studio, then dub separately, and it would create a layer of artificiality. The sound would be too clean. Instead, what he did is he would get the actors to dub live on location. So he would get the ambience of the place, all the sounds, and he would take their tracks there. This is called direct dubbing, and he started this technique in India. He was a creative polymath. He was basically, like it was just mentioned, he started composing his own music. He designed his own posters. Of course, he wrote his own screenplays. He did practically everything. He was like a one-man army doing, controlling all facets of his films. He even designed costumes, and this is something extremely rare. Even today, directors hardly ever design costumes. They rely on their costume designer to do it for them. He not only designed the looks for his films, for the costumes, he also went out there and sourced some of those costumes himself.
Mr. Ray is wonderful to work with because he is very patient. When taking the scenes, he would explain the situation and ask us to act the situation the way we wanted to do. That is, he wouldn't dictate the way we should move our hands or put our heads in a certain direction. Not like that. He would just tell us that this particular character is feeling like this in this particular moment.
First of all, I was very reluctant to go into it at all because, I had that middle class inhibition against being on the screen. Though I had acted on the stage, but that was not a professional stage, of course. I didn't like the role either because the role in Possible Bhatia, his first film in which I was, it was the role I was thrilled by. But when I started working with him, it was absolutely different. I got so much involved in it and inspired by the team spirit, you should say. I never felt anything was forced on me. The genuineness of the atmosphere and his direction as well. As a director, he wouldn't, he would just describe the particular scene or the emotion he wants me to do. I would just stand by and see how I can.
So basically, this is his actors, some of his best actors saying that he just let it be. He told us what the scene needed and did not direct us really, did not tell us what to do, did not micromanage us actors. And I want to just make a point very quickly here, and I will end with this, is that he was actually smarter than we think. This is not just the only way he directed. Sometimes he was also faced with non-actors, with actors of not the caliber that he wanted. And with them, he followed a process where he would absolutely tell them down to the T, in complete contrast to how we work with some of his best actors, where what was needed out of them. And a great example of working with a non-actor, I'll just quickly show you this clip. Okay, that clip I think is not embedded on this, but in any case, it's basically a clip from Opera Jito, where the son has just lost his mother, and there's a non-actor, an old man from the village, sitting and telling him while sipping on his hookah, get on with it. this happens, people pass away, and you will be fine. You should go ahead, go to Calcutta and concentrate on your studies. And this whole chunk of dialogue, what he did is he told the man that while sipping your sipping on your hookah, you just break up the line and say it part by part by part. Don't say it in one flow. And he gave him exact directions for every action that was needed. And that was the genius of Ray. He worked with different actors in the way that it needed to bring out best performance out of them. That's about it. This was about the craft, some of the things that I think made the man the filmmaker that he is. Thank you.
Thank you, Kunal, for that brilliant exposition of the final points of Ray's art and craft of filmmaking. I'll invite Ray to now to take over for the next section, where we are going to discuss some of his most wonderful movies.
Satyajit Ray, the pioneer of Indian cinema, created a timeless legacy through his exceptional films. Paved, which is described as a turning point in Indian cinema, was a film that pioneered the parallel cinema movement. This movement espoused authenticity and social realism. Also, it was one of Satyajit's personal favorite. May I request Mrs. Neelam Mehrotra to take us into the world of this cinematic masterpiece and share its intricate details with us. Thank you.
The raw material of cinema is life itself. And from a deep observation of life, from a great intellectual capacity, and from a deep sensitivity was born Paved Panchali, the song of the little road. Ray's debut film that became a history, that became a legend in the history of films, won 15 international awards, catapulted Ray to fame, and put India firmly on the map of international cinema. Based on a novel written by Vibhuti Bhushan Bandyopadhyay, Paved Panchali evolved to become the Appu trilogy, which included Paved Panchali, Aparajito, and Appu Sansar. As a whole, the trilogy moves like an Indian rag, slow and meandering at first, but later culminating in an emotional catharsis from Appu's birth to his reconciliation and reunion with his small abandoned son in Appu Sansar. It was Jean Renoir, the famous French director, who encouraged Ray to make realistic films based on the rural life in Bengal and not copy Hollywood films. He said, "I think that what Hollywood really needs is a good bombing. They pay too much attention to technique and neglect the human aspect." Vibhuti Bhushan's book itself was a masterpiece. A book about the beauty of childhood and old age, about distances and innocence. Satyajit Ray found this beauty in a village 4 kilometers from Calcutta by the name of Bohra. However, this rural world and the art of filmmaking were both new to Satyajit Ray. He observed the new flavors, the new textures, found beauty and horrors that other filmmakers might have passed by, and he captured the warmth, the lyricism in the life of a Bengali village. Evening comes, the cows return home, the wind blows and turns the ponds into sheets of ice. The smoke settles in wispy trails over the landscape. The women light diyas near the tulsi plant. Darkness falls and the stars blink and swirl in the night sky. And all these become the magical landscape of the film. The sounds of the movie are also mysteriously eloquent. There is the torrent of a rainstorm. There is the old aunt's scratchy songs. There is the voices of the children at play. And there is that faraway whistle of a train. And adding to the melody is the mellifluous music composed by none other than Ravi Shankar, still young and still a new artist. To describe the plot or story of Paved Panchali
is a challenge in itself. For how can one express the entire experience of childhood? And that is the theme of Bhatia Panchali. But oddly enough, as the pieces of mosaic increase, a pattern emerges, a beautiful theme comes out, and the whole thing becomes poetic in nature. The first look at little Appu, the young protagonist of the film, is a close-up of his eye. A big, intelligent, a terribly innocent eye that in the course of the film will see a lot of life and a lot of death. There is the poor priest Hariharan, who walks the dusty road in search of a living. There is his wife Sarvajaya, who struggles to run the house. Indir, the unwanted elder sister, bent and shriveled with age, and two curious, innocent children, Appu and Durga, who explore the magical world of their village and live in their own world of discovery and delight. Together they have their first tingling experience with the train, and on their way back home, they meet something even more incomprehensible: death. Their aunt Indir, rejected by Sarvajaya, has come into the forest to die. No words can express the beauty, the misery, and the horror of the scene. To a child's eye, everything is marvelous. And by the time we come to the end of the movie, Satyajit Ray has taught us to look at this world with the eyes of a child. It took 3 years for Ray to finish this movie because of a paucity of funds, and what finally came into existence is cinema that flows with the nobility and serenity of a river. It is one of those rare films where we see ordinary people live their lives with their great afflictions and small joys. It's a film made with sophistication about unsophisticated people. 3 scenes from the film are outstanding. Sheer poetry on celluloid. First, there is the train rumbling away from Appu and Durga into the distance, leaving a swath of smoke against the white kash flowers. The train, a symbol of journeys, of change, of dreams, of faraway places. Secondly, near the end of the film, is Durga's discovery and concealment of a necklace which his sister, now dead, had stolen from a neighbor. He finds this necklace, picks it up, and throws it into a pond near the house. Thus, nature hides Durga's secret. And this is the first major decision Appu takes in his life. And thirdly, the last shot of a snake crawling into the now deserted house of Hariharan as the family moves to Kashi in search of greener pastures. These touches are quintessential Ray. By the time the movie comes to its sad end, it has the substance of a tender lament. This movie is somewhat like India. Like India, it is an enigma and cannot be bound in a neat plot or simple judgments. Like India, it is no song and melodrama. Like India, it has dignity, it has honesty, it has authenticity, and it has a conscience. And like all intricate pieces of art, it speaks to us even after 7 decades. If you have not seen it, please do. Thank you.